Hi, this is Matt Miller from Ditch That Textbook, and today we're going to be talking about raising some money for your classroom. Because if you're anything like me, there are lots of things that you want to do, and some of them you can't do without a little bit of money. And so we've got an expert at being able to get some funding for your classroom here. Today we're joined by Jed Dearybury. And so, Jed, can you tell us just a little bit about yourself and a little bit about how you got into DonorsChoose?
Well, like you said, my name is Jed Dearybury. I'm from Spartanburg, South Carolina, and I teach second grade here. This is my 13th year in education. I'm primarily an early childhood teacher. And yeah, I have had a little bit of success with DonorsChoose. Since 2006, I've had over 100 projects funded. And I will tell you, it literally has changed everything, Matt, in my classroom. The way that I heard about it was just random. One day in 2006, I was waiting on a late bus, and my principal came into the classroom and she said, "Hey, while you're waiting, why don't you check out this website I heard about called DonorsChoose?" And you know the old adage, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. But at this particular time, DonorsChoose was not too good to be true. It was really legit, you know. And I wrote a project for language materials. I worked in a school that at the time was 30% English language learners, and in my classroom of 18 students, I had 17 that were learning English as a second language. And that was my third year of teaching, so you can imagine I was still very fresh to the career and still learning, and so I needed all the help that I could get. And I wrote this project, and within 2 weeks it was fully funded. And a week after that, I had all these materials in my classroom. And the rest, they say, is history. It's been an amazing journey, and I've gotten so many amazing things from my classroom. Anything from construction paper, you know, the basic materials, paper, pencils, you know, even a pencil sharpener, the high-tech pencil sharpeners.
Of course,
and all
yeah.
the way up to all the way up to, you know, Lego robotics, iPads, and laptops. Throughout the years, I've learned some tips and some tricks to help people, and I'm going to send you a link you can post to your blog that will walk people through some tips. A link to my website, but for me, the basic things that I tell people is to keep your first few projects between $100 $300, because those projects will get you momentum. The smaller projects will get you momentum. A lot of people want to write for a class set of iPads right out of the gate. Like my grandma used to say, "Whoa, horsey, whoa." You want to slow down a little bit on that. I love your ambition and your dream, and if you know somebody who's a big donor, go for it and write it.
Sure.
But keep your project small in the beginning, $100 to $300. And when you write your projects, a lot of times people think, "Oh, I'm not a good grant writer because I can't maybe speak eloquently in my writing." DonorsChoose is a great website full of integrity, and they have top-notch proposals from teachers all across the country. But the jargon and the language of DonorsChoose is not so much a grant as it is. It's like a conversation between you and a friend at a coffee shop, if you will.
Okay.
It's like sitting down with you saying, "Hey, Matt, I've got this really cool idea for my classroom. You know how awesome my kids are and how hard I work for them and the situation they come from. And, you know, I just would like some construction paper and some scissors and some glue to have in my classroom for this project. Would you mind giving me a couple of dollars to help out?" And so basically that's the language of a DonorsChoose project. And
so that
there's
means
other
that in my classroom right now, since all of my dry erase markers are pretty much dead, that I could just put a little DonorsChoose project through, and I could probably end up with some dry erase markers.
I would almost guarantee it. I'm not going to say it's 100% guaranteed, because not every project is funded. You could go to DonorsChoose and they have all kind of stats about their projects and how it's funded, and it's amazing the integrity of the organization, the way they track the projects and the stats. But if you wrote for dry erase markers, your project has to be at least $100. So that's a pretty good amount of dry erase markers.
That's a lot of dry erase markers, yeah.
You could probably get enough dry erase markers to last a couple of years. But yes, you could do that. You could write a project for that. And you know what? You write that project, Matt, and I'll give you some money. I'll help you out.
Well, that's awful generous of you.
I love that. I love it. Have you written a project yet?
I started to do one at one point, and I don't think that I totally finished it up. I think I needed pictures or something, and then I got busy doing something else, and it never ended up working out. So
go to DonorsChoose.org/Mr. Dearybury and read some of my projects. That's another tip on my website. Go to my website on DonorsChoose and read some of my projects. Get an idea of maybe something that you would like to do. One of my favorite projects, I've said the word construction paper 3 times during this discussion.
Yeah, that's true.
I called it I called it a wall of color because I love construction paper as an early childhood teacher. I think every teacher, all the way through seniors, even college professors, should have a stock of construction paper because it invites creativity into any lesson. And I wanted not just your basic, Roy G. Biv colors. I wanted magenta and teal and beige.
Yes.
I wanted every color in the rainbow, And so I wrote the project for literally every shade of construction paper I could get in the DonorsChoose cart. And it was about $300 worth of paper. And it was, that was probably I loved my iPads. I still love them dearly. But when that box of construction paper came to my classroom, it was like Christmas morning. The kids were ecstatic. I mean, it was just like, oh my gosh, look at all this paper. We busted open the paper that day, and we were making all kinds of stuff. It was a great day.
That is so cool. Yeah. Now, before we get too much farther into this, I just realized that we may have some people watching that may not know a whole lot about what DonorsChoose is and how it works. Would you mind giving them just a real quick synopsis?
Well, basically, DonorsChoose is a crowdsourcing website where I post a project for something that I want for my classroom, and then people that I know, people that I don't know, from across the country, from across the world, can give money towards my project. I've had donors from far away as Sweden.
Wow.
Pretty cool. There was a man who was actually from my town, but he lives in Sweden now, and he wanted to give back to some schools in the area. He funded a project for me. And then the best thing about it is, Matt, is as a teacher, you know how busy we are. The only thing that we have to do in return is we write an online thank you note to the donors, which I think is just a given. We should do with that anyway. And then you take 6 pictures of the students using the materials that you were giving, and you post those online. Now, if you get a donor gives more than $50, the donors can request handwritten thank you notes from the students. But what I do is I just turn that into a lesson. We go over parts of a friendly letter, and we sing our little song that we have. And so it's a great opportunity. I have one particular friend of mine who gives $50 a month towards projects. The great thing for her is that DonorsChoose is a nonprofit organization, so at the end of the year, she gets a tax credit for her donations. She also works for a company that matches donations, and so
that's awesome.
That doubles what I get. And so it's an amazing. DonorsChoose.org is an amazing, life-changing website for teachers, and I hope that every teacher in America will get on there as soon as possible.
Sure. Now, you can use DonorsChoose obviously to fund your classroom, but you had sort of a kind of high-profile, interesting campaign through DonorsChoose that didn't have anything to do with your particular classroom. Am I right?
That's correct. In 2011, I believe it was. 2000, I can't remember the year, 2011, 2012, when Hurricane Sandy struck the Northeast. I was supposed to run in the New York City Marathon. That was supposed to be my 4th marathon. And obviously, your listeners will know that the marathon was canceled. And rather than be bitter and upset that the marathon was canceled, I decided to come home to Spartanburg, where I live, and organize my own marathon. And in the course of a week, I asked people to donate to DonorsChoose.org, specifically to schools that were damaged or destroyed by the hurricane in the Northeast. So there were schools from New Jersey up through New York City, Connecticut, and those areas that were damaged that received the funds. And in 1 week's time, we raised $13,000.
That is amazing. Wow.
It was. I know. Wow. My goal, as I posted it on Facebook from the hotel in New York City that I was going to do this, I was thinking if I raise $500, that will be awesome.
Sure. Yeah.
Wow. Really, $500 was my goal. But the community here got a hold of it, the local news media got a hold of it, and made it a story, and it just took off. And then DonorsChoose heard about it, and they nominated me for an award from GQ Magazine, the GQ Male Leader of the Year. And I was one of 5 everyday citizens, if you will, everyday men that was awarded the GQ Male Leader of the Year. They flew us to New York.
Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, I was just going to say they flew us to New York, and it was an evening that every teacher in America deserves, and I hope and pray that for every teacher that they get that experience, because it was a once in a lifetime event for me, and you know it's not what we teachers are used to. It was very extravagant, very nice event, and I felt very celebrated because of DonorsChoose nominating me for that award. But it was an honor because I was the only teacher there, and I got to stand before this crowd and talk about education and just the importance of teachers.
That's so cool.
And this whole crowd of celebrities that were there stopped and clapped for their favorite teachers, and it was neat to see that no matter how high you go in our society, it started with a teacher, and I think that's a great experience I got to be a part of.
Yeah, absolutely. I was kind of hoping that you would jump in and tell that story. That's so cool, and yeah, that's something. No matter what walk of life you're in, if you end up nominated for an award put on by GQ, I mean, you know, it'd probably be sort of a stretch of the imagination for me to even have like the magazine sitting in my house, let alone getting an award from them. That's just so cool.
Well, it was very humbling, because when I decided to run the marathon back here at home and raise money, you know, I was literally I was in bed in the hotel the morning after the marathon was supposed to happen, or the morning after it was canceled, and I could have been laying there feeling sorry for myself, but I never thought in a million years that little act of, hey, I'm just going to go for a run, would have such an impact. It was very neat to be a part of.
Yeah, absolutely. And that ties kind of nicely into the next thing I was hoping we might be able to help my readers and I guess watchers or listeners out with is if they decided to do something with DonorsChoose. I mean, you said that all of that for the hurricane, the schools affected by Hurricane Sandy, that all kind of started with a Facebook post. Now, are there some things that you can do that you suggest that you can do to kind of campaign for yourself and get the word out?
Well, that's so important, and I'm so glad you asked that, because there's lots of things that teachers can do to promote their projects. First of all, social media is where our society is. I know that lots of people, you know, have differing opinions about social media, but that's where they are. So if you can put a link to your to your DonorsChoose project on Facebook, to Twitter, to your email, to Instagram. Take a picture of the project, screenshot it, and then put the link in the comments. Every place that you can put a link to that project, put it. Because, my grandma used to say, you get out of something what you put into it. I think all of our grandmas have said that.
I think so.
And if you don't put anything into the project, you probably won't get any donors. You might get a few, but I tell everybody about my projects, and then I tell them again. Another thing that you can do is look for organizations that want to help you with your funding. A lot of different times DonorsChoose will match you up with those. I happen to work for a great nonprofit called the Lily Sarah Grace Fund. It is a nonprofit that we specifically help fund arts-infused, inquiry-based learning projects for underfunded elementary schools. If you want to look us up on the web, it's lilysarahgracefund.org. And what we do is we encourage teachers to write these amazing arts-infused, inquiry-based projects on their DonorsChoose site, and then they submit their DonorsChoose projects to us at Lily Sarah Grace. We have two different grants that we award. We have something called the Stepping Stone Grant, which is a DonorsChoose project, $450 or less. Then we also have the full, we call it ABLE, Arts Infused Inquiry-Based Learning Grants, up to $1,500. So that's a pretty hefty project. We also, on our website, provide a rubric so that teachers can download to know exactly how we score, so that they know how to write their project in a way that meets the criteria for the ideas that we want to promote as an organization. We are very passionate about the arts in education, and we're not just talking about glitter and pom-poms. We're talking about amazing hands-on projects that are out of the normal realm of what's considered traditional teaching. But I love that in the nation, it seems like the idea of traditional teaching is fading away, and more people are grabbing this idea of inquiry-based learning, STEAM, and because we want it to be engaging for our students.
Yeah, definitely. Can you tell them real quick about the business cards that you have as far as DonorsChoose for somebody who may want to really go all out with it?
Well, I have a business card, and as every teacher, let me get on the soapbox just for a minute. Every teacher needs a business card. We are professionals, and every other profession has one. Why not teachers? We need to have one. When you're standing in line at the grocery store, at Target, wherever you may shop, you need to have a card that you could hand to someone, not only to promote your DonorsChoose, but to promote what you do. If you have a website, if you have a blog, if you have a Twitter, put all those on a business card. I actually have a business card with all of that on there, and it does have my DonorsChoose.org/Mr. Dearybury. And if there's ever someone who says, "Oh, I just love teachers. I would love to, help you guys out anytime," I'm like, "Well, as a matter of fact, here's what you can do." And I hand them that card. And one night I was out to dinner, and I was talking to a man who was sitting nearby. We struck up a conversation. That's how we do it here in the South. We just talk to anybody. And so I happened to have the business card, and I gave it to him. And the very next day, he ended up putting some money on one of my projects.
That's awesome.
So that makes those cards worth it. And you never know where that card, somebody might take it and toss it, but you never know where it's going to land. Somebody else is going to pick it up.
That's a good point. That is a very good point. I like that. One more thing I wanted to ask you about as far as DonorsChoose, to give some more suggestions, because I know you probably have something on this. As far as actually creating your application, do you have any suggestions for ways to word things that you should include, that you shouldn't include, as far as photographs, any of that stuff?
When you're writing your project, they don't actually ask for any photographs in that part of the writing. You do, and in your account setup, you do have to put a photograph of your students or your classroom with students, and not necessarily the zoomed-in picture of the faces for privacy, but just a full shot of your classroom with students would be great. But in the actual writing of the project, the most important thing I can tell you is to speak from your heart. The people who are reading the projects are not most likely teachers or educators like you and I. They are they're lawyers and doctors and plumbers and nurses and you know, you're the parents of your students. They're just everyday people who aren't in education but love public education and want to help us out because they see the value in it. And so just keep it simple. I would avoid too much teacher jargon because, you know, if I were reading a proposal for some doctor or a lawyer and it was filled with legal or medical jargon, you would lose me in the first paragraph. And I think that's what happens if you write your project too lofty with the words. You know, you want to be professional, of course. You want to represent the profession well. Make sure you use spell check and grammar. DonorsChoose does have we do have screeners. I'm a screener for DonorsChoose where we edit the projects before they go live, and we do screen them thoroughly for mistakes. But occasionally, you know, one might get by. So you want to make sure that if it's one with your name on it, you know, it looks great.
Definitely.
But you basically want to paint a picture of what your classroom is, what the project is, and why you need it to help your kids be successful. Okay. And all of that flows right out of your heart.
That's awesome. That is great. Okay. I'm out of things that I wanted to ask you about that, so I'm just curious if there's anything else in any of these presentations you do for DonorsChoose or just anything else that comes to mind that you think could be useful for people that we haven't talked about yet.
What I always end my presentation with is I tell people, you will never get funding if you don't put a project on the site. So after your listeners, your viewers watch this, listen to this, they need to go to DonorsChoose.org, check it out, write a project. If they don't know what to do, they can go to my website, MrDearybury.com, and look at the presentation that I have there under the teacher tab. Email me, MrDearybury@hotmail.com. I would be happy to help out and give you some suggestions. Go to DonorsChoose, read other projects. You guys can do this. It's very easy, and DonorsChoose is there for you. So take advantage of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think after we get done talking here and I sign off from all the different things we're doing this evening, I think I'm going to have to try to fit in just a little bit of time and head over there and make sure I've got an account and maybe start working on getting some of those dry erase markers.
Do it. I'll be the one to give you the first $1.
That's awesome. That is great. Okay, and I also want to put a little plug in for the two of us. Jed and I have just started a new podcast or program on the BAM radio network, and it's called Hooked, and it's all about student engagement. Where I think they're still sort of getting that first episode all ready to go. We interviewed Dave Burgess, the author of Teach Like a Pirate. He had some great insight for us. It was a wonderful first episode. In fact, just as soon as Jed and I sign off of here, we're going to be heading off to interview our second guest. And so that's going to be exciting. So you might keep an eye out for that. I know probably between the both of us on social media, we'll be promoting it and letting people know when it comes out. But hopefully here pretty soon we should have our first episode. So Jed, I think you're probably like me that we think this is a pretty exciting thing coming up.
Yeah.
So very good.
You're a great co-host.
Hey, we're doing it again right here, so that's good. So, all right. Well, hey, thank you so much for giving us some time, and we'll be looking for people's projects on DonorsChoose, right?
That's right. I can't wait to read them all.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.